Offers are on the way, and a pickup up my sleeve. They call my team insane, say I'm the one to beat. So you better bring your A game and start playing, 'cause every single...
Welcome to another episode of the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational Podcast. I am Justin Mason, and I'm going to be joined by a fantastic guest today. That is Greg Jewett of Fantasy Alarm and The Athletic. And Greg has really kind of starting to get a real name for himself in the industry. Been around quite a while, does a lot of great work at Fantasy Alarm, but he's getting known for his closer charts. And right now we are in kind of the midst of closer hell right now. And so I thought it'd be a great time to bring him on and kind of go through some of the weird situations, some of the kind of uncertain situations, and really kind of dig in and talk about what he specializes in and what he is known for right now in the industry. And Greg is a fantastic guy. Definitely go follow him on Twitter, GJewett9, and subscribe to his closer charts, which are pinned to the top of his Twitter feed. And you could subscribe via email to his Substack, where he's got just amazing information and gifts on kind of the relief pitchers that you're going to be interested in for fantasy. It's a really valuable resource that I don't think gets enough publicity. So it was great to talk to him about that. So without further ado, here's my episode and interview with Greg Jewett of Fantasy Alarm and The Athletic. Joining me right now is Greg Jewett. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastically. It's a beautiful day. You and I were just kind of BSing a little bit beforehand, talking about our TGFBI teams. We'll definitely dig into yours, and then I'll bemoan mine while you bemoan your own poor luck. But before we jump into that, let everybody know where you can reach on social media, and then kind of talk a little bit about what you do.
Oh, boy. Let's see. On social media, on the Twitter machine, as Howard likes to say, it's at GJEWETT9. I update the closer charts as fast as I can daily. I usually pin them every morning, and that gives you information from all of the game recaps the night before. I've added links this year, even putting in some of Pitching Ninja's GIF tweets, although those could be misleading because sometimes I'll see a GIF of a guy, then I look up his outing, and he's given up 3 runs, and I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to the GIF? But with all that being said, and then my work is on Fantasy Alarm. Welcome back to the family, by the way, doing the DFS stuff. God bless you. Mm-hmm. And I also do the closer reports. They're out on Fridays on The Athletic. So it's been an overwhelming year, and now I understand what you mean about getting about 3 hours of sleep a night.
I think this is something like I was talking with a couple guys in the industry, and they're like, I just don't have the energy that I used to deliver content. I don't know how people do it so seamlessly. And my answer to them was, I'm up till 3 or 4 o'clock every morning. I don't think I'm doing it seamlessly, but I just, in order to produce the kind of content that guys like you and I do, you have to sacrifice somewhere.
And we're on opposite ends of the coast. So the other day when you reached out to me about recording this, I'm answering you when I'm waking up at 4 a.m. to go over everything. And that's probably when you're going to bed.
Oh no, I think I still had about 2 hours worth of work to do at that point. But I was like, I did start reaching out to some people and booking some shows. That's kind of what I've been doing the last 2 days, is booking shows for this show, for the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast, and then for the Sleeper in the Bus. So if you're into listening to a lot of great guests, I'm going to be having them on all my platforms. We're going to talk about your closer charts here in a little bit. Because they're amazing and I love them, and I've got them pinned for my own use and stuff. So, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit about your TGFBI team. You were in League 26. You had the 3rd pick, and this is, I guess, a cautionary tale of why some people don't like to draft early. You started off Soto Woodruff. Absolutely love that start. You missed Soto for the first couple days, but with all the COVID stuff, but you got him back. He's going to be a monster. But then you took Eloy in the 3rd round, Framber Valdez in the 6th round. How has that been? Like, all of a sudden you draft this team, it looks fantastic. You're happy walking out of the draft, and all of a sudden season starts and you go, oh no, this isn't good.
The Framber thing didn't bother me as much as the Eloy because, seeing him go back for that fly ball and it looked kind of harmless with his arm dangling over the fence. And then you come to realize that the injury was pretty serious after a day or so of persona non grata from the White Sox. And if you look at the standings right now, I try not to look at the standings, but you forced my hand. So I went in and looked at them quick just to see where I was. Somehow my team is first in stolen bases, first in saves, which is the two things everybody was nervous about getting this year in drafts. I reached a little bit to get Garen Hampson in the draft when we had it, but that was right off of the heels of a Patrick Saunders column where he predicted this would be Hampson's breakout year and he was going to steal 30 or more bases. And at that point of the draft, I knew that was something I had to address, getting Eloy and Soto early. So I wanted to make sure I got him a round or two too early rather than trying to get cute and get him on the way back, especially, you're in 1, 2, 3 or at the other end of the wheel. You've got to hit guys before ADP at times to make sure they're on your roster. So I'm hoping Cole Calhoun can hit for some power. He's just coming off of the IL, so he can hopefully – I got him at a steep discount because he was hurt at the point of this, so I got him way below ADP, so I'm hoping at least that can help recover, but he can't hit for the average that Eloy did. It sends you scrambling from the get-go, so I have to be very, very good I've been trying to save FOB, so I have to be very good with the prospects that come out, and I really have to target power. So a guy like Helio Ramos, if he comes up to your Giants, is somebody that I'll be spending top dollar on if that happens.
So how do you manage that, though? Because obviously NFBC, which is where TGFBI is played, it's a weekly league except for the Friday switches. You're in a situation with your team where you currently, you've dropped Eloy, so, obviously you couldn't hold on to him for that long time, but, you have Colton Wong, who's at the IL, Mike Soroka, who we thought was going to be back sooner. It doesn't look like he's going to be back quite as soon. You've got Syndergaard, who you're stashing. You've got Logan Gilbert, who you're stashing. Framber Valdez. That doesn't leave you a lot of flexibility.
Correct. This weekend might force my hand. I'd love to hold on to Gilbert, but if I'm sitting on Soroka and I'm sitting on Syndergaard, I can't stash probably 3 pitchers. I've been very fortunate with the saves and the other things, so I'll definitely be looking for guys either with multi-positional eligibility or somebody that has infield, outfield, whether it's third base, outfield, or something of that nature, to maybe plug a couple of holes just to try and keep myself viable. We all know in a 15 team you're going to have a weakness somewhere. So right now that's mine is the bench. Sorry, my dogs are barking at people going by, but that's definitely going to need to be addressed. So you raise a very good point, and I was really messing with that this week and going, can I get by? And we'll see. I'm hoping Evan White can get some at bats this week, but that's definitely a spot where I might have to move on.
Yeah, I think that is probably one of the spots you might want to think about at some point. I love the rest of your draft. You got Freddie Peralta in the 20th round right before kind of the helium kind of went into effect for him and people started really jumping him up draft boards. I love the Colton Wong pick. I know he's on the IL, but his price went up after this draft. Gary Sanchez has gotten you some really good results early on, so I like what you did, but it's one of those things where you're going to have to stay vigilant, more vigilant than maybe others in your league because of the early losses.
Yes, and there were chances taken at different points, and you're just hoping things work out. So if Hampson keeps staying aggressive on the bases, they're heading back home after this 3-game set with the Dodgers. That can help pump up that thing. And then, this is a no trade league. If this was a trade league, I'd be putting a closer out there right now.
Yeah, because, the one thing you have plenty of is saves, right? You're just, you're staying on brand by just nailing every single good closing situation.
I was sweating out Kimbrel during spring training. Don't get me wrong. I was watching him. The coffee and closers, there was always a post about Kimbrel because I was watching him. He was on double secret probation.
Well, yeah, because he was really struggling, and I had him pretty high up in my closer ranks, and then the spring kind of scared me away from him in some of my bigger leagues, and I kind of wish I had just stayed on track a little bit, but you've got 2 saves from Kimber already. You've got 3 saves from Alex Reyes, 2 saves from Daniel Bard. So, I mean, it feels like you didn't necessarily play up a ton for closers. Is that kind of your strategy because you're so in tune with what everybody's doing?
I don't want to. It really depends. It's draft dependent, Justin. Where I missed out on the 2 big closer runs. So they both happened. One happened going away from me, and the other one happened coming back to me. So I had to switch gears. So I had it in my head. So I was either going to get Kimbrel, Will Smith, or one other person at that point. So I wanted to have a safer closer one as far as role, not necessarily skills at that time. So I went with Kimbrel. And we had spoken on a different podcast about I was on if you're taking Jordan Hicks, you back him up with Alex Reyes. So I got lucky there. And then Daniel Bard, at his price, I was like, let's get a third closer here because the starting pitching at that point didn't excite me. Hindsight being 2020, maybe I could have taken a power hitting outfielder at that point. But at least now I know. Everyone's on the fob, burn, and churn right now looking for saves. At least I don't have to enter that, so I'm saving money. I'm either hoping somebody makes a mistake with a power hitter, or I get one coming up from a system. Like we said, that I can use my money to get that resource. That's a definite need for my team.
Yeah, I'm in the exact opposite situation as you. I have 0 saves. Thankfully, in my league, 5 teams have 0 saves, which seems just weird. But
there's like 40 pitchers with a save, but I think 1/3 of them have them on that weren't on fantasy rosters. It's been a mind-blowing year.
Yeah, and I mean, there were a lot of people who said it could be like this. I didn't think it was going to be this ugly this quick, but definitely has. But so I've been kind of specking on the guys that might be able to get a job. We'll talk about a few of those here in a little bit, but let's talk about like those closer charts you do, because they are absolutely amazing. And I think it's an underutilized resource kind of out in the industry. I hear people talking about, subscribe to this, Twitter account, or subscribe to, check out Closer Monkey or check out the Bullpen Report at Fangraphs. People don't give you enough credit. So talk about how you kind of came up with the idea for this and then like everything that goes into it.
Well, first off, that's too kind. Thank you. It's kind of funny. I've been doing these for a few years. The last couple of years, they've been getting a lot more readership or people checking them out and things of that nature. I just kind of, because I used to do the bullpen reports with Al Melchior for Fangraphs a couple of years ago. When everything happened with COVID last year, they couldn't bring Al and I back, and I wanted something. I was like, I've spent all this time getting to know bullpens and closers. I don't want to waste that resource, so I just kind of doubled down and bet on myself. And again, these have been in existence, but I used them more for. I wanted to do these day by day because it helped me write better columns for Fangraphs when I was doing the bullpen report. You don't want to be, I would write Tuesday and Saturday, but I didn't want to just pick it up Friday and be like, okay, what's happening in saves? By doing this every day, it keeps me really tuned in. And then every year I've been adding. So like this year I've been adding the whiff percentages, sometimes the swinging strike rates in games, the beat writer reports, putting the links in there. All of that's been new wrinkles this year, but I think it's only enhanced the product. So, it's to a point where, people have given a couple of nice tips, which is always appreciated, but it's not the point of it. It really helps me. And then for doing the articles at The Athletic, again, I'm doing content daily on this. So then I'm not like looking for stuff to write about on Thursday night for Friday's column. It really keeps me tuned in. So I do it as much for me as for everybody that uses it. But when people send me a picture that it's in their tab or they were using it in NFBC drafts and things like that, then it's high praise. I think even Ryan, the writer of Ear Bloomfield, said he had this open on his phone during his either tout or labor auction.
Yeah, I mean, it's super, super useful. And I mean, closers is one of those things that I hate to write about. Like, I hate even doing ranks because,
ranking closers is, I hate ranking them too because it can change. I can publish ranks, like I'm doing a new top 60 for Nando to publish tomorrow, but by Thursday they could be beyond outdated.
Oh yeah, and that was the thing. It was one of those things where I posted my ranks, and literally news came out that later that day. And it was like, I'm just not gonna go back and, fix this. I'll tell people where they can find my live ranks that I update for myself, and they can just watch me update over there because it's just a nightmare. Like I couldn't even imagine doing it in season.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People love ranks, and I don't understand it. You're looking at performance, opportunity. There's so many things now with these fluid bullpens that me putting Kimbrel at 7 and somebody, Will Smith, at 8 doesn't necessarily mean, because this week Kimbrel could get 3 opportunities and Smith gets 0. So, okay, it's justified this week, but then next week Smith saves 3 and Kimbrel blows 2 saves, and it's like, what's this guy thinking? And again, that exactly speaks to why I do it every single day. And God bless my girlfriend. We've been dating for over a year now. And when we first started dating, it was really when COVID and everything started. And I was like, my life's never this boring, because we were binge watching Breaking Bad and hanging out all the time. I was like, usually in April and March and stuff, I'm just so busy writing. I don't get it. Now, this year she has a much better view of it, but she's been wonderful about it.
Yeah, it's nice to have supportive people, right? I mean, it's
absolutely, yes.
I mean, some people are like, well, how do you do it with like family and, kids and a wife and all that? And it largely comes down to my wife is just, no matter what she says about me on Twitter, she's a saint.
Oh yeah, I know. Anything she says on there, she's just pushing her buttons. She's a terrific, big, warm-hearted person. So yeah, this stuff is. And I think I saw a tweet the other day, someone retweeted her, find somebody that believes in you. And that's exactly it. When I got the job with the Athletics, she just looked at me and she goes, Greg, this is your time. You deserve this. So I see all the work you do. Those are the things that matter the most.
Yeah, it really is. Keep doing this amazing work because I use it a ton. I'm glad, and I think some of the best tools in the industry have come from people like, well, I'm already doing this work for myself, so I might as well share it. I mean, I think that's what Jeff Zimmerman has said about mining the news. Mike Kurland is doing a bunch of really cool stuff with pitchers right now and lineups.
Yep.
But I'm so thankful when people are like, well, I'm doing this work, so I might as well share it. That's where my, kind of my weekly planner articles came from last year over on Fangraphs was I was already doing the work. I might as well, put it up there for people to see, and count that as an article every week. So, I appreciate it. I know a lot of people in the industry, and just people playing in regular fantasy leagues appreciate it too.
Thank you. Yeah, I know.
Let's talk about some of these kind of troubled situations that are driving fantasy managers just out of their mind. And we'll start with Alex Colomé. He blew his second save yesterday. Twins and Red Sox are not playing today because of kind of some the events going on in Minnesota right now, and it may be a little while before they even play their next game. So we'll obviously have to wait to see how this one plays out. But how long of a leash do you think Colomé has, and who would likely be next man up?
It's funny because in the preseason, Baldelli kept being adamant that it was going to be a fluid matchup based. And at the beginning of the season, Taylor Rogers was matching up with Christian Yelich in the 7th and 8th inning. So okay, I understand. Well, maybe he'll get a shot. It has pretty much been Colomé in closing opportunities from the get-go. And even Rocco's quotes yesterday after the game, he was like, it's just a rough spot for Alex, but he's our guy. He never said that in the preseason. It was always committee this, high leverage that. The Rays bullpen that I grew up in as a coach was going to transform here. I don't know if he has ties with Colomé, so we put him there from their time in Tampa Bay together. But I'm watching this very, very closely. What we're looking at is I was hoping for a game today because Colomé was going to be off, so I wanted to see if it was going to be Rogers or Hansel Robles, but with the civil unrest, you totally understand why they're not playing baseball, because there's bigger things going on in the world, which we all understand. So I'm definitely keeping a track. So here's the thing, Colome's always been somebody who's outperformed his metrics. Like his ERA is always below his Sierra. Even if you look at in 2020, he had the 12 saves with the 0.81 ERA. He had a higher WHIP than ERA, but his Sierra was 4.44. And then you go second half of 2019 to 2020, you expand out that sample size. Same idea, 2.45 ERA, but a 4.89 Sierra. Sierra is usually the most predictive of the stats as far as future ERA on Fangraphs. So I usually reference that when I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And the anomaly now is he's got an inflated ERA this year, but his Sierra is 3.01. So I can't figure Alex Colome out. I was out on him last year and it burned me, but I stayed out on him on this year, and so far, so good. We'll have to see. I'm really watching Robles. He's got the velocity back. I know he was horrible last year and he burned so many people, and we don't want to buy back into somebody, but it's really hard to ignore his K minus BB percentage right now. He's got a .43 WHIP. His Sierra is 2.11, and he's got a 50% strand rate. So Colome's had bad luck too. His strand rate's 34.9. So 65% of the people that get on base against him are scoring. I mean, that's going to even out. We're just going to really keep close tabs on Robles versus Colome, because it really looks like Rogers is going to be a situational lefty in this bullpen, because Thielbar is more of an extended inning guy, if that all makes sense.
It does, and I think one of the things, too, that we often overreact to is coach speak, right? So, like, we hear guys, managers in spring say, well, this is what we're going to do, or this is, and then ultimately they go back to what they know, right? So, like,
look at San Diego. San Diego insisted it was not going to be one person, and Melanson wasn't mentioned once by one beat writer. It was Pagan this, Pagan. I mean, I have the quotes and all of the coffee and closers that I put out during the preseason. You never saw Melanson, and he had more walks than strikeouts in the spring, and now he leads the major leagues in saves.
Yeah, exactly. It just, I mean, we have to just kind of go with what we know. And then be ready to kind of react, in season, obviously. One of the situations we have to react, and this is a situation near and dear to my heart, because I literally posted an article, a bold predictions piece on opening day morning, that said Trevor Rosenthal would lead the American League in saves.
He could have.
He definitely could have. He's definitely not going to anymore. He got thoracic outlet surgery. He's probably done for the year, if maybe not even, maybe just his career at this point, is probably in jeopardy, because that is a surgery that is difficult for guys to come back from. A lot of people had kind of latched on to the things that Oakland was saying, that Diekman was going to be the guy, but then we saw like kind of a mini Fabapalooza with closers where Lou Trevino was the most picked up player in online championships this weekend in NFBC. How do you think this shakes out?
Those could be savvy. We'll have to see. I know in the preseason before they signed Rosenthal, there was the Diekman versus Wendelken camps, and there was really no one talking about Trevino, but he's off to a very nice start this year. He's another one. He's got 8 strikeouts against 0 walks, 53.8 ground ball percentage, 1.35 ERA, only a 3.11 Sierra, so there's a little migration to the mean looming, but a nice 0.60 WHIP. When I'm looking at this stuff, I want guys who are producing strikeouts, keeping traffic off the bases, and if they do get in trouble, can get a ground ball, and Trevino checks all those boxes. Luckily, as we spoke about off air, I didn't really have to venture into any of these early Fabapaloozas for closers. But if I was throwing the dart, I probably would have been hoping to get a cheaper dart on Trevino with people overspending on Diekman. Since Rosenthal's been out, Diekman's worked twice, once in the 7th and once in the 8th. He hasn't had, they haven't had a save chance, but he hasn't been in the 9th inning either.
Yeah, I completely kind of missed the boat on this one, to be quite honest. I put my money on Diekman a couple weeks ago. I'm hoping that it works out in my favor in a few leagues because
there's a chance, but his command's been a little off this year.
Yeah, and he's the lefty, so I mean,
right?
Lefty
Kolarek
bias is real.
Well.
Yeah, lefty bias is real when it comes to closers. So
if there's not another one, yeah, I mean, the reason I wasn't worried about McGee and other people there were so many lefties in that bullpen to insulate him. To me, it wasn't an issue, but I know a lot of other people were wary of him.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think, and not to mention, McGee's just clearly the best reliever on that team.
Correct.
Another situation that has been kind of weird and fluid is Greg Holland. Holland felt like one of the safer, cheap closers coming into the year, and they've used a number of different guys. Now, I think Holland got a save yesterday, so. Maybe
he pitched 2 innings. He got the win.
Oh, he got the win. That's right. And then
the
Kyle
Zimmer.
Yeah. Kyle Zimmer comes in and gets the save. So, what's going on in Kansas City? Is it even decipherable?
No. Both beat writers have answered this question. Matheny in an interview was saying, we're going to keep putting guys out in the ninth and figure out what their best roles are going to be. And, Greg did it for us last year, but he's also a versatile guy. And I was like, uh-oh. And so he's throwing spaghetti pieces at the wall to see who sticks right now. Mm-hmm. So whatever closer can, because last year Rosenthal kind of jumped up and took it and ran with it, but it took like a month. So I think we're in that same cycle. He's going to keep rotating guys through, and it's going to be very precarious for people in FOB because somebody might get the save tomorrow and then somebody else might get the save Friday. And then this weekend you're going, which one do I get? And then Monday it could be a guy who wasn't either one of those two that gets the next save. I mean, there's been 3 saves in that bullpen, 0 to Holland. And one was to Jesse Hahn, who just went on the DL with a shoulder injury. So you can take him off of the board. Zimmer actually has very good numbers so far. Scott Barlow's been walking a couple too many people, and he's been used in a couple of multi-inning outings. Josh Stallmont's just rounding into form. He had a bad case of COVID before spring training, so he's a little behind. Wade Davis has a save. I don't know. So you got Davis, Zimmer, and Hahn have the 3 saves right now in that bullpen. And I don't know. I don't know who's going to get the next one. So maybe it's Holland, maybe it's not. I'd rather spend my money elsewhere until Matheny comes out and says, this is my guy. It's a very, very difficult bullpen to predict.
Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare. And Holland is my closer, or one of my closers in one of my main event teams. So
right now you got to hold on and hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you can do right now. I think I've got Holland on that team, as well as Wade Davis. Oh, and Jesse Hahn. So I just
there you go.
I just grabbed the whole
bullpen. Get rid of
Jesse. Yeah, I can get rid of Jesse next FAB period. But it'll end up being Kyle Zimmer. Like that. That's just my kind of luck.
There's a chance. I mean, he was one of their top prospects not too long ago, and we see that jump a lot where it's a failed starting pitcher either by health or other things. And that brings me back to Oakland, too. Would it surprise me if A.J. Puck gets the most saves for that team in the second half? Absolutely not. I don't think he can be a starter. So if he can get back on the field, they're going to put him in higher leverage.
All right. Let's jump over to the next situation. Emmanuel Clase, he's, I think, gotten 2 saves in a row now. Mm-hmm. He definitely has electric stuff. I'm kind of surprised that he's been the one getting the opportunities because Cleveland's cheap and typically they don't want to give young guys saves because that's just going to ratchet up their arbitration in a few years. Mm-hmm. What's your take on the Cleveland situation? Is it Clase moving forward, you think, or do other guys jump in here?
I want to think it's Clase. It's funny, you talk about Cleveland being cheap. I share this nugget with people all the time. Nick Wickren's the only pitcher on that team making more than $1 million. Mm-hmm. Just let that marinate for a minute. So, yes, they are cheap. Karinchak has been kind of stuck into the stopper role, and if you look at it, when you look at the win probability stuff on Fangraphs, he's got the highest GMLI, which is the leverage index based on where he enters a game. So he's been in the biggest pressure situations, but Clase has been getting the saves. So that tells me Terry Francona wants Karinchak to go in, whether it's the 7th or the 8th, face that highest leverage moment, and then he trusts Clase to do his thing in the 9th. And the team's starting to buy into him. You read the quotes like Franmil Reyes is like, it's fun to see Clase in there and have that big guy on the mound closing out games. I think he's kind of galvanizing that role. He's another one like Amir Garrett that came out in spring and said, I want to close. And I think that's kind of resonated a little bit. And again, Karinchak, I love his talent, but I think Francona wants to be able to put him wherever he wants. Does that mean Karinchak won't get a save? Absolutely not, because Clase was in the 8th the other day. So there's a chance that Karinchak could get a save if he sees fit to use him in the 9th or give Clase a day off. But right now, it looks like it's Clase's job to lose. But again, I want Terry to confirm that. But luckily, I have a couple of shares of Clase, so that could help me. As a matter of fact, he was on the bench on one of my NFBC 12-team leagues.
Clase is one of those guys where, like, I did not think they would give him the role just because of the arbitration ramifications. Apparently, I still think this could turn into kind of being a fluid situation. I've got a lot of Nick Wickren.
It could.
But I did spend $237 worth of fab in an online championship this weekend to get Clase.
Okay.
So, like, I mean, I'm kind of backing myself up a little bit just in case I'm wrong about this reverting.
It's what we have to do. It's everyone hates having to handcuff our running back in fantasy, but now we're doing that with closers.
Yeah, it might as well be the same position, for a different sport, right? Because all the time you're having to go to the waiver wire and pick up the next guy because guy got injured or the usage. You're seeing committees in the NFL. I mean, this is the same type of thing at the closer position in fantasy for baseball. Is you're always having to work the waiver wire or fabbing guys because you never, outside of a few workhorses, these situations are going to turn over.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the next situation, and that's the Arizona Diamondbacks. I thought Soria was pretty safe coming into the year, that he would be the guy. There had been a report that they had given him, or he had taken less money to go to Arizona because he thought he would be the closer. And so I was like, all right, well, if that's the case, then he's the guy. He struggled in his first outing, is injured now on the IL. So the question is, who closes in Arizona, and do we care?
I'm going to take the second one first. I'm not going to find out. I don't want to know. This is funny because from everything you could gather from the beat writers, it turned into a disagreement. Hazen wanted Soria, and Lavulo wanted Crichton. So it was almost like butting heads about it. So with that being said, I would assume Crichton would get the next spot because Lavulo did have faith in him after the way he finished last year when Bradley got traded. So we'll watch that and see how it develops. Kevin Ginkles actually looked better this year early on, so we'll have to see if he might figure into it a little bit. And I'm keeping a watch. I don't know if they're going to keep Caleb Smith in multi-inning outings or if they might convert him full-time to a reliever, because I wrote about it on The Athletic that he could take the Brad Hand jump moving to the bullpen. Very similar skill sets.
He looked very good in his first relief outing. And so that one wouldn't surprise me. I worry a little bit about just kind of his tendencies.
He doesn't have the high velo.
Yeah, he gives up home runs and walks. Like, those are the two things. And, like, is that the thing you want in the ninth inning? Typically, that's not what managers want.
And again, I don't know if you've been following along, but I'm big on the JB Bukauskas hype train. So whenever they do bring him up past the Super 2, there could be a pathway for him. I think they would wait, but near the second half, he should hopefully get himself in line to get some save chances. That kid was throwing BBs in spring training, and it wasn't like it was all against weaker competition. He was facing the major league hitters, and I think he racked up something ridiculous like 14 strikeouts against 0 walks in the spring. I know it's spring training, but you don't ignore K to BB.
Yeah, I completely agree on Bukauskas. I mean, a guy who's got like 4 legit offerings, because he was a starter at one point. I think he could turn into a lights out closer. It remains to be seen if Arizona will give him a chance to get that role, though.
Correct. Yeah, that's what we don't know. Same idea where you're depressing a guy from saves to save money. That could be an issue, but that's definitely someone that I have my eyes on.
A guy who, again, thought he was pretty locked into the role was Anthony Bass. He signed the contract, went there. I'd gotten him a bunch early in draft season before he signed, thinking there was a chance he could close somewhere where he landed. It seemed like he was the guy, 2 shaky blown saves early in the season, and now they appear to have turned to Yimi Garcia. Do you think he's going to be the guy, or is this, again, going to be a situation that trades hands a few times?
Yeah, if you listen to the coach speak, and there was an interview where Mattingly looked like he was totally out of it, saying that it could be Yimi Garcia, it could be Richard Blyer. He even mentioned Dylan Floro as 3 people potential. But the first time he had an opportunity to get a save, it was Floro in the 7th, Blyer in the 8th, and Yimi in the 9th. So I think we take that template and we hope that that's what it's going to look like going forward. Will it? We don't know. But at least he showed his hand once before FOB this weekend. And I had same thing. I only had 1 share of Bass, but that was in a 14-team head-to-head. So after the second blown save, I just went in. And again, I hate these leagues where you can just go add somebody without bidding on them. But once I watched that blown save, I saw Garcia was on the waivers, and I had an empty spot, so I grabbed him on the spot. So I got the save the next day. But again, I hate leagues that do that, but you adjust to the league and you go forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I think my guess is Yimi's going to have the role at least for a little while. If Bass gets right, I would not be surprised to see them go back to him at some point.
Correct, and plus Yimi's on an expiring contract, so I mean, at some point, if they're not contending, they're going to trade him.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. Are there any other situations I didn't put on the rundown that we should talk about?
I think I really liked what I saw of Kenley Jansen yesterday. So I know everyone was on the Corey Knebel train, and it's okay to get him if you're handcuffing Jansen. I think that makes sense. Or if you're in a league where every save matters, that makes sense. In a Solds league, I went through my rankings today, and I ran them on SGP, and I think Knebel's a top 5 Solds pitcher right now. So, if you're in that format, that totally makes sense. We're watching to see what Pittsburgh does. They keep saying it's going to be a committee. Richard Rodriguez has the only save, but he's a trade commodity, so they have to move him soon. So we're waiting to see if Bednar stays in the 8th, will he get the 9th if and when they trade Rodriguez, because I think they have to. I think we're watching Houston to see if there's anybody that can set up to get to Ryan Presley, because it's been ugly getting a bridge to getting him in there. And Tampa Bay, when are they going to start bringing up these young arms? Once that Super 2 date lapses, I think you're going to see guys like Shane McClanahan come up. You're going to see Luis Patino come up, and how they use them, whether it's in the super reliever role or how they might deploy them, could get very interesting, because otherwise right now that Rays bullpen is just like Diego Castillo and pray for rain.
Yeah, we thought that the Rays bullpen was going to be one of those positions of strength for them, right? Nick Anderson and Castillo and
Fairbanks. They've just been decimated.
Yeah, they've just been hit hard. And so now Castillo seems to really just be the guy there, which was a situation where, we literally compare other committee situations to the Rays, right? We go, right. Oh, this is going to be a Rays type situation, and now the Rays can't even do a Rays type situation.
No, there's no Rays roulette, so now we moved on to Royals roulette. It still flows the same, just different team.
I like that a lot. Greg, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Justin. It's always great talking baseball with you. You're one of the best minds in the business, so it's great to share a mic with you and hang out and talk. So made my gloomy Monday afternoon here in Syracuse a good one.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. You are one of my favorite people to follow on Twitter. Remind everybody where you can reach on Twitter, and then plug everything that you do.
Let's see. It's at GJEWETT9. Tuesdays, my Behind the Breakout columns are on Fantasy Alarm, but that's behind the paywall. Fridays, we do Streaks and Trends, where we highlight hot hitters going into the weekend. Fridays also, The Athletic, my closer articles post there, again, behind the paywall. But I think the article, or Athletic's always running deals to get it for $1 a month. With the amount of content on that site, that's a steal. The closer charts, I do my best, like I said, to update them daily, whether it's during games or the next morning at 4 or 5 a.m. Game recaps, links, and everything going on with bullpens. And again, the reason I like running those closer charts is it updates every day. So if somebody gets hurt, I try and flip a guy right in there so you know who the next option and things of that nature might be. And I still do some DFS stuff for Fantasy Alarm, but I've gone to just the pitching and hitting coaches. Those playbooks, those were a killer to me.
Yeah, if you want to come subscribe over at Fantasy Alarm, I'm working there doing those playbooks.
That's right.
3 to 4 days a week. Yeah, it's.
I think last year, one day on a Saturday, like I finally got it all done. I'm like, all right. I told my poor son, I'm like, hey, we're gonna go golfing, and we were out on the golf course, and I got a phone call because the catcher I had in my starting lineup got benched at the last minute, so I had to give him a pivot. And I'm like, can I just golf 9 holes? But it's okay.
Yeah, no, it's I've been very careful to be like, listen, if you need to blow up my phone at 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that, because I did one the other day where I was up till 3 a.m. The games started. I think the first game started at like 9 a.m. on a Sunday, and right. All of a sudden, like, they're texting me, which doesn't wake me up, because, it didn't save properly, and so none of, like, the actual write-ups were there. It was just the player. So I was like, no, you guys gotta call me. Like, don't be afraid to wake me up. I'm rarely sleeping as it is. But. Yeah,
that's an empty feeling in your gut when you get that thing. You're like, oh my good God. I did that one time last year. I didn't save, like, a playbook, and then I had to, thankfully, I had it on a Google Doc so I could just transfer it over, but good Lord.
Yeah, this is, it taught me to make sure I actually I don't care if I'm posting the article at 4 o'clock in the morning, I just post it and make sure it's all there before I go to bed. So I don't have to worry about it. Greg, it's always a pleasure to sit down and talk with you, my friend. We'll definitely have to do this again. Maybe I'll bring you on to a different podcast so we can do it sooner.
Awesome. Would be welcome to it. Thank you again, Justin, for all the kind words and having me on.
Definitely. That will do it for another episode of the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational Podcast. Really want to thank Greg for coming on and devoting some of his afternoon to speak with me about kind of some of these really tricky closer situations, getting to know a little bit more about him as well in the process. We're going to be kind of changing things up here over on the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational Podcast. And so the plan kind of is I will be recording once or twice a week, usually twice a week, trying to do an episode like this where it's covering more kind of analysis, breaking things down that are going inside of baseball for your fantasy teams with a guest in the industry, and then kind of going back to the getting to know you pods as well, where I kind of profile someone within the industry that is playing in TGFBI. So, kind of getting to learn a little bit more about them. As far as the series Beat Him at His Own Game that my wife and I have been recording earlier this year, that is currently going to be on hiatus for a little bit, due to some things that have happened in the fantasy industry. My wife is going to take a little bit of a step back. She's still going to play in TGFBI. She's still going to set her lineups and make sure she's doing fab and all the things she needs to do that are necessary. But we're just going to kind of hit the brakes a little bit, and if and when she's ready to return, she will. And if she's not, then that'll be the kind of end of that series. I hope she does return. That was a lot of fun. You can go back and listen to those episodes if you've never heard them. They are evergreen because they were kind of going over the basic tenets of fantasy baseball and what a new person would need to learn. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed her and enjoyed the process of that. So definitely go back and check those out. But I'll be coming back hopefully about twice a week with guests throughout the industry for the rest of the season and probably year. So definitely keep listening, subscribe, give us a rate and review. 5-star reviews really, really helps us out. So would appreciate any of that. You can find all of my work over on the Friends of Fantasy Benefits website and podcast, Fangraphs, where I write daily, the Sleeper and the Bust podcast with Paul Sporer and Jason Collette, and over on Fantasy Alarm for all my DFS content. So for Greg and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
First place in my league, got a blockbuster on the way, and a pickup up my sleeve. They call my team insane, say I'm the one to beat. So you better bring your A game and start playing, cause every single week another win for me.
Yo, Commissioner, you can just pay me now. City win first place, then take a bow. Finish on top, I'ma set the standard. Don't believe me, you can check the standings. When I draft, I make smart selections. Got more sleepers than a narcoleptic. Meet your match, kid, my lineup's nasty. It's far-fetched thinking you might catch me. No surprise, I'm taking home the prize. Only time I rest is a playoff bye. Make amazing finds off the waiver wire all day and night. Better stay retired. See me in first, all proud and cozy. Bro, please, I can't even count my trophies. Bragging, even when my bats are slumping. I'ma pack a punch, stat tracker junkie.
I'm the one they don't wanna play. First place in my league, got a blockbuster on the way, and a pickup up my sleeve. They call my team insane, say I'm the one to beat. So you better bring your